This Russian offensive seemed unstoppable until something invisible took action. What you're witnessing is the aftermath of a Russian assault that moments earlier appeared invincible. Just minutes ago, they advanced confidently with their armored vehicles, personnel carriers, and billion-dollar air defense systems. Let me demonstrate how everything collapsed. The sequence begins with a Russian armored vehicle advancing across open terrain. This APC, armored personnel carrier, functions essentially as a metallic transport box equipped with tracks or wheels, designed to ferry troops through combat zones with protective coverage. Steel grating has been welded around the hull, with camouflage netting secured overhead. The crew inside believes they possess adequate protection. This additional shielding was specifically installed to intercept unmanned aircraft. In theory, the concept should prove effective. However, something small is already airborne, tracking every movement of the vehicle. The drone plunges directly into the APC's front section. The detonation is immediate. Nothing remains of the armored transport, only black smoke ascending and debris scattered across the ground. The protective grating made no difference whatsoever. Across the battlefield, a second armored vehicle attempts to advance along the identical route. It maneuvers around artillery fire beginning to fall nearby. A mine detonates beneath the tracks, but the vehicle continues moving. The lower armor withstands the impact. For a moment, it appears the vehicle will successfully traverse the danger zone, but then, a Ukrainian operator, monitoring everything from a screen kilometers away, directs a kamikaze drone to intercept it. The explosion is devastating, far more powerful than the first. Metal fragments fly hundreds of meters in every direction. The vehicle simply vaporizes. The shock wave raises dust and debris. When the smoke begins to dissipate, nothing remains there, only a smoldering crater. The soldiers in the following vehicles likely witnessed this entire scene. Some may have served alongside the men in those two APCs. Now they must make a decision. Continue advancing or abandon the mission. Most choose the latter option. They exit their vehicles and run. But the drones are already pursuing. One of the abandoned vehicles is struck while the crew is still fleeing. Another massive explosion. The ammunition stored inside begins detonating. Small chain explosions transform into a large fireball. The entire vehicle is consumed by flames. At this point in the battle, Russian commanders must decide: retreat or escalate the attack. They choose escalation. They decide to deploy tanks. Heavy machines equipped with much thicker armor than APCs. Some have mine-clearing rollers mounted in front to create paths through minefields. One such tank advances slowly across the open field. The front roller rotates, detonating mines before they reach the vehicle. The system functions. The tank manages to reach halfway across the field without problems. The crew inside is probably beginning to feel somewhat confident. But then comes the drone. The impact doesn't destroy the tank immediately. Instead, it strikes the navigation and communication system mounted atop the turret. The crew realizes they've lost control. They can no longer communicate with command. They don't know if more drones are approaching. 3 men decide it's not worth waiting to find out. They open the hatches and run from the tank. They jump and sprint without looking back, and they're correct to do so. Seconds later, a second drone attacks the abandoned vehicle. This time, the impact is at the rear, where the engine is located. Flames begin consuming the tank. The fire spreads rapidly. Soon the entire rear section is engulfed in intense fire. A few meters away, another tank sits motionless in the middle of the field, but no one is inside. The crew has already abandoned it. They witnessed what happened to the first tank. They saw how the drone found its target despite all the protective measures. They didn't want to risk it. They preferred to leave millions of dollars in equipment behind rather than remain inside it. A drone hovers above the empty vehicle, circles once, twice. The operator is studying the target, searching for the optimal point. He chooses the junction between the turret and hull where the armor is thinnest. The drone dives. The explosion tears the entire turret from the tank. The force is so great that the turret, weighing several tons, is launched several meters into the air. It spins in the air before crashing back to the ground with an impact that raises a dust cloud. What remains of the hull is merely twisted and charred metal, but the offensive still doesn't stop. Commanders continue sending more units. A Russian T-80 tank enters the battlefield. It's a relatively modern model with reactive armor mounted around the hull. You can see the name written on the turret's side in white paint. Someone dedicated time to personalizing this tank, but that won't matter. A kamikaze drone is already airborne, flying toward the target. The pilot guides the drone with precision, adjusting the trajectory in the final seconds. The impact occurs exactly at the junction between turret and hull. The explosive charge penetrates the armor, reaches the internal ammunition compartment. The tank explodes from inside out. The detonation is so violent that the turret is torn off with enough force to fly dozens of meters. When it finally falls, the sound of impact echoes across the field. What remains of the tank are only metal pieces scattered over a wide area. Parts of the chassis, armor fragments, a track unrolled on the ground. At this moment in the battle, two armored vehicles attempt a final coordinated assault against a Ukrainian position in a small settlement. One covers the other with continuous fire from its machine gun. Tracer rounds cut through the air. It seems like solid tactics, teamwork, suppressive fire while one advances. But the drones are already en route. The first APC immediately loses support when its partner is struck by a drone and explodes, but the commander decides to continue advancing alone. The vehicle accelerates toward Ukrainian positions. Cluster munitions begin exploding around it, creating small craters in the ground. The vehicle swerves, continues advancing. Then it hits a mine. The explosion lifts the vehicle's front off the ground. When it falls back, the tracks are damaged. The engine tries to keep functioning, but the APC is immobilized, trapped, vulnerable. A Ukrainian drone is already flying over the stationary vehicle. The operator doesn't waste time. The drone descends in a straight line toward the target. The APC is engulfed by flames. Fire penetrates the interior through openings created by the mine explosion. The ammunition stored inside begins heating up. Temperature rises rapidly. Then comes the main explosion, so powerful that the entire vehicle seems to jump from the ground. Armor plates are torn off and launched in all directions. When the dust settles, the vehicle simply doesn't exist anymore. Only scorched earth and twisted metal fragments scattered in a circle several meters wide remain. Russian reinforcements are approaching. Another APC advances along the same road the previous ones used. But alongside it, invisible and silent, another Ukrainian drone is following. The new APC is struck as soon as it enters the combat zone, stops instantly, a perfect target for a second attack. Another explosion illuminates the field. Now, all vehicles that attempted this coordinated attack are destroyed, every single one. Surviving Russian soldiers begin abandoning any vehicle still functional. They've realized something fundamental. Vehicles offer no protection. In fact, they're magnets for drones. It's safer to run on foot. But even abandoned vehicles don't remain intact for long. A Ukrainian drone drops a grenade directly inside an empty APC. The grenade falls through the open hatch, explodes in the internal compartment. Fuel and stored ammunition catch fire immediately. Internal temperature skyrockets. Pressure increases with nowhere to escape. The vehicle opens like a sardine can. The sides are torn off by the force of the internal explosion. Parts of the structure are launched in all directions. The roof is completely torn off and flies several meters before falling. Fire continues burning in the remains for several minutes. The same fate awaits a nearby tank. A grenade falls inside through the commander's hatch. Fire spreads rapidly through the interior. The explosive reactive armor mounted externally begins detonating, creating a spectacle of small sequential explosions. Then comes the main detonation of stored ammunition. Turret, chassis, engine parts, everything is scattered over hundreds of meters. The explosion is so powerful that even an abandoned tank 50 meters away is damaged by shrapnel. Hot metal pieces perforate its side armor. A Russian tank covered with reactive armor and equipped with electronic warfare systems mounted atop the turret sits in the field. Even with all this extra protection, even with technology specifically designed to interfere with drones, it was abandoned by the crew after hitting mines. A drone grenade falls inside. Fire. Explosion. Reactive charges detonate one by one, creating a light show. In the end, just another smoking hull. But it's not only direct combat vehicles being destroyed. Russians depend on an entire network of support systems to keep their offensives functioning. One of these is the UR-77 Meteorite. It's a specialized engineering vehicle used to clear minefields. It works by firing explosive charges connected by long cables across the minefield. The charges detonate and clear a path. Each charge weighs 725 kilograms of explosives. A Ukrainian drone strikes the UR-77 while it's positioning. A fire starts at the vehicle's rear. Flames grow rapidly. The crew jumps out and runs away. They know exactly what's going to happen. Flames reach the two explosive charges still mounted on the vehicle. The detonation that follows is absolutely devastating. A fireball rises dozens of meters into the air. The shockwave sweeps everything within a radius of hundreds of meters. Nearby trees are uprooted. The crater left behind is enormous. It's the type of explosion you feel in your chest from kilometers away. Another critical system for Russian operations are the TOS thermobaric launchers, also known as Solntsepak. These weapons fire rockets that create extremely high temperature and pressure explosions, capable of destroying fortifications and clearing entire buildings. Because of their destructive power, they're considered extremely high-priority targets by Ukrainian forces. A kamikaze drone strikes one of these systems. The initial explosion is already large, but then the stored thermobaric munitions begin detonating in sequence. Each creates its own fireball. The sky illuminates as if it were day. Millions of dollars in advanced military equipment disappear in a flash of light. The most valuable target is worth up to $650 million. It's a Buk air defense system. These systems are the backbone of Russian air defense. They can detect and shoot down aircraft at dozens of kilometers distance, but they have a critical vulnerability. Their missiles are mounted externally, completely exposed. When these missiles are hit, the resulting explosion is always devastating. Ukrainian intelligence forces locate one of these systems through drone reconnaissance. Coordinates are immediately transmitted to a HIMARS battery. Missiles are launched. They fly in precise ballistic arcs, guided by GPS. The Buk system has no chance to react. When HIMARS missiles strike, the explosion of the Buk's own air defense missiles creates a spectacle that illuminates the night sky. Sparks and fragments fall like rain within a radius of hundreds of meters. Ukraine has just systematically ended an entire Russian offensive in a few hours of intense combat, tanks costing millions each, air defense systems that took decades to develop and manufacture, armored vehicles designed by engineers to resist the worst possible battle scenarios, self-propelled artillery, specialized engineering vehicles, all destroyed. And destroyed by what? By drones costing a few $100s, by precision missiles, by operators sitting kilometers away, looking at screens, guiding backpack-sized weapons against targets worth more than houses. War has fundamentally changed. The technology that dominated battlefields for over a century may have become obsolete overnight.